This is the Toasted Sister podcast. I'm Andy Murphy. So you've probably heard me talk about this brewery because it's my favorite brewery in town. Bow Arrow Brewing Company is based here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and it's owned by a couple of very awesome Native women who you will meet in this podcast. They are Shyla Sheppard, who's Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara, and Missy Begay, she's Navajo. We'll get into this episode right away because it's a little bit of a long one, but first, I need to remind you that I have Toasted Sister t-shirts for sale. They've been printed and they are so ready to go. Oh, and I found some Toasted Sister coffee cups and some zines in my storage in my garage. They were just like sitting way up there in the corner. So there are just a few of those. So go to the now fully stocked online store at toastedsisterpodcast.com. That's one way you can support this podcast and the important Native food journalism I do here. You can also sign up to be a patron on Patreon. It's like a virtual tip jar that you put money into every month, and you can pledge anywhere between $2 a month to $100 a month. But every patron is special and gets a personal thank you on a new podcast episode. So this time around, I'd like to say thank you to Shay Large, Jillian DiNardo, Ashley Miller, Kelly Villa, and Cynthia Hanna. Thank you. Okay, so let's get this episode started, shall we? So, really exciting. You guys are coming out with a new beer called Curio, and it's kind of in the making here, getting bottled a couple of different ways, I hear. Can you tell me a little bit about Curio?
Sure. This is Shyla. So Curio is the first release from our foeder. And it's kind of funny, actually, how we came upon acquiring this foeder. So it's a big vessel. So it's double the size of any one of our current stainless steel fermentation tanks. So it's a 30 barrel, basically it's a huge oak vessel. Its original use was as an Italian wine cask. And over time, a brewery in Tulsa, Oklahoma called American Solera was actually using it. It was part of their foeder program. And then a year ago, back in April, I think it was, we went on this epic road trip. It was me and Missy, our head brewer, Ted, and one of our other employees. We drove across the country to attend the Craft Brewers Conference in Nashville. And along the way, we had it in our plan agenda to stop at American Solera just because, we really respect what they're doing there. And along the way, Ted was on Facebook and he was kind of teasing, and he was like, "Hey, Shyla, we should buy this foeder. American Solera is selling it." And I was like, "Really? What size is it?" And we got kind of curious, and we're like, "Well, we're going to be stopping by there anyway. We should just take a look." So we started messaging them, and they were going to be around. And then hours later, we're standing in front of the foeder. They were selling several of them, and we just started talking about the possibilities we could have with this and really expanding our Wild and Sour program. That's something that we're really passionate about and we feel has really set ourselves apart. There's a lot of science involved, but there's some art involved in these beers, as we'll get into with Curio as well. So long story short, we ultimately bought the foeder. And then early July, actually, Missy's dad happened to be hauling a tractor back this way from Kentucky. So we convinced him. He actually had room on his flatbed, just enough to squeeze our foeder on. So first part of July last year, they stopped at American Solera and, worked with Chase to maneuver this massive vessel that's pretty delicate, actually, onto the flatbed, and it made its way westward on I-40 here to Bow Arrow. So we've got pictures of that. I think in Missy's post yesterday, she included it.
Yeah. You can see it. It's like behind this like classic John Deere tractor, this massive oak vessel sitting there.
Yeah, so that was, and the scariest part when we received it was offloading it, because it has some hardware that sticks out in kind of weird places, and it's pretty delicate. But thankfully, we used our forklift. We actually have this steel fabrication company next door to us here at the brewery, and they have some massive forklifts. So we went over there, and they were kind enough to like come over and help us unload it. But once like we could stop holding our breaths after the foeder was safely on the ground. So yeah, that was back in July of last year. We cleaned it, prepped it, and something that we all agreed that we wanted to do with the foeder was to really dedicate it to farmhouse ales. And we're pretty specific. We don't just throw around the word farmhouse without it being very meaningful. So when we say farmhouse ale, we're talking about everything being sourced locally, or at least regionally, when it comes to all of the hops and the barley. So we have in Curio barley from Troubadour Maltings up in northern Colorado, Proximity Malt from southern Colorado. We have Billy Goat Hop Farm hops as the base. And then, there's so many cool things about Curio. But the other really cool part is it's our house mixed culture of yeast and bacteria, which consists of yeast that we captured out in the wild. From one of the cultures came from our peach tree that's here on site, and another, our friend James, who used to be one of the bakers at Los Poblanos, he did a trade with us, and he took one of our yeast traps out to the Los Poblanos lavender fields. So we left that overnight, and we did a number of these. We left a number of these yeast traps kind of throughout the valley, and a few of them came back really beautiful, like saison, like stone fruit, like. So anyway, and some of them were like gross, like baby diapers, so we trashed those. But ultimately, we narrowed it down to a select few. So the fermentation over the last year has been on some of our wild and sour cultures that we captured. So that's also a really cool thing about this beer.
Yeah, you guys shared a couple of pictures and a big long post, a couple weeks ago about foraging hops. What was that, and where is that going to go?
Yeah, sure. So this is Missy. So the foraging the hops has been sort of like this, I would say like a 3-year endeavor for myself and for Bow Arrow, because I initially started it as a small research project, unofficial research project. I have many projects. And so I was really curious about, in my other work as a physician, I was doing some research on traditional like Native American plants that some of my patients were using. And so that led me down the long winding road to the UNM Southwest Research Library. It's a really cool library with a lot of really vintage books, manuscripts. It's like dusty and it smells like old books. And they have this huge Native American collection. And so I found like this really cool Native American botany book that I had to get like special permission to look at. And I started just trying to match up the plants that I knew pretty much the scientific and the English name to like their traditional names. And that by itself was like this really difficult feat, right? To kind of translate some of those plants and some of those names. In the process, I had basically run across a plant that kind of sounded like a hop that you use in beer making. These hops pretty much have these medicinal properties, right? Well, all plants are medicine. So it is not surprising that the hop has medicinal properties. And so that's kind of how I discovered the traditional Neo-Mexicanus hop. So the hop is used in beer making for both aroma and also for taste. So the different aromas you can get from like various different hops, and Shyla was kind of talking about that, but also it can be used for bittering, actual like taste of bitter beer. As I did more research on the Neo-Mexicanus hop, I found out it had a really interesting story because it's really like the only hop that's truly native to North America. So it's the only indigenous North American hop. And there's other hops that people use now commercially that are hybrids. They are a lot of the hops originally came from Europe, but this hop is like so special because like the only one that grows around here. And so then started researching it, started talking to people, reading a lot about it, and then basically found some tips on where it was growing. And that led us to basically starting this like foraging trip one weekend. Once we had gathered all our information and we got like our map together and our little crew that was going to go up there and like our game plan, got our GPS and all our snacks, and basically kind of went up into the mountains here in New Mexico and found these hops. That's like the short story of that version. But it's like really exciting, and I'm like super stoked that we got to use it in a bow and arrow beer.
Yeah. Even sitting on this side of that Facebook post, I was really excited because I love all the beers that come out of Bow and Arrow. Like truly, Bow and Arrow is like my favorite brewery out there. I love everything about every beer that comes out. And to read about this one, I was like, oh my God, I have to talk to you guys about it. But what was that like for you guys to be out there? I don't know how much hiking you had to do and how much of a connection you made with nature, but what was that like for you gathering, like picking these things from the wild? Because, I hear a lot about like chefs and foragers who do this too. They make meals out of foraged plants and everything, and it's just like next level, some other kind of level connection that you make when you're there picking something that's gonna nourish you or make a good beer.
Yeah, so we started the day out just with a very open mind and try to have just really positive thoughts and good intentions. Even growing up, like when we'd go to pick sage, my grandma told us that sometimes it'll hide from you, so just having that really good mindset going out was important to us. And we made sure we had some things with us if it did, show itself that we would have an offering. We started out, I don't know, sort of like 9 or so, and made our way. And like Missy said, we had a general idea of the conditions that we've heard that they grow well in. In the first place we went, we came across a lot of just like wild grapes. I just didn't even realize they're prolific. They're like everywhere. And so those were kind of throwing us off at first, but it was still exciting because they're like, oh wow, we had a whole new level of kind of awareness as we're looking like everywhere. So that was really fun and beautiful first part, just the scenery and the landscape. And then just being together and just telling ourselves, well, we could go home empty-handed, but that's okay. So the first route we took, we didn't see anything. And so finally we kind of called it and said, okay, we're going to move on to higher elevation. So we kind of packed it up. And then, of course, with COVID, some of the areas we're finding are not accessible. So one of the areas we wanted to go to, someone stopped us and said, you can't go further. So we're like, oh, because we were convinced, there's going to be something there. So we basically had to take a detour and then just pulled off to an unplanned location, stepped off just to kind of stretch our legs and stuff. And then lo and behold, there was that signature leaf. And then so we went a little further and literally like yelled out in excitement, just couldn't believe our eyes because, everything we've read about, other people foraging for it or it being used in beer is that this wild Neo Mexicanus hop is small and just, not necessarily conducive. That's why it's been hybridized, all these things. So the size of it was really like shocking in that moment. Just these big, like lush hops hanging from the trees. We gave an offering, and then, we just started thinking. We had an idea for how much we thought, we would need for this small batch. And we started harvesting it. And, it was, Frank, I think, was even like singing some of his songs. And
yeah, we went with one of our friends from Sandia. I think it's kind of like interesting because all three of us are like different tribes, and we've all had our own experiences with foraging, like growing up, whether it's like Shyla with like choke cherries, or whether like from the Navajo side, like piñons, Navajo tea, or plants for like rug weaving, things like that. And then our friend Frank also has a lot of experience. So it seemed like when we went on this trip together, a lot of those like different stories would come out and kind of like gave us like the same like feelings of just, I don't know, a lot of it, it's like you feel kind of like a little kid almost. Like there's a lot of wonder and excitement. And I think, like Shyla was saying, when you actually find what you're looking for, it's like this feeling of just like pure like joy. And it's a hard day because if you've ever been foraging, it's like you kind of have to tune your eyes. Like if you're actually looking into a forest, or if you're looking into the immense, like the ground cover, right? And you actually really start looking, it takes a while for your eyes to sort of get entrained to see the different patterns and shapes. And as the day goes on, like the sun casts different shadows, and there's just like a lot of different things happening. So you really have to also be really present, like in yourself and your mind. And so I think at the end of the day, we were just like so focused and so present. And like Shyla said, we were just like so excited, and it was a really good day for all of us.
There were more at that moment. So from a timing standpoint, as far as their maturity, it seemed to be just the right moment, but we left some, we were careful about not trying to take every single bit.
And so that goes, all of what you're describing, the wonder, the, excitement about it, that goes into the name of the beer. What came first, the name or, this whole experience?
Naming beers. That could be a whole podcast on that. So we kind of have a process. So the short answer is the name came.
We had the names.
Yeah, we always have names, like running lists of names. So the process is that we come up with names, and then they're centered around different themes, right? Like themes of what our branding tries to evoke, like making beer here in the high desert of the American Southwest. And for this beer, I believe that name we picked it after.
It was after, but it was like floating around in our like book of names. So we have these cool names, and it's like when the right beer comes to be, and it's the right fit.
It's a secret book of names. It's locked.
Confidential.
Can't have it. But yeah, curio. So in the Southwest, I don't know, people's maybe grandparents have little cabinets of little like trinkets. So a lot of times it refers to like unusual or peculiar items that are sort of lined up in this old dusty cabinet. Somebody thinks they're interesting. But I thought on the book of names, like curio was just such a good name for this beer. One, because I think the foeder is such an interesting item in the brewery. To me, it's kind of like a really cute vintage R2D2. Like he's kind of, the vessel is like 66 barrels. 30 barrels. So it's like huge compared to just like a wine barrel. But it's like this little cute, short, like kind of stouty looking object in the brewery. And it's really interesting. It's like a beautiful, it's like a piece of art in a way. And so I thought curio was like really fitting for it. And I don't know, it's just like the word is really interesting and it's nice to say.
Yeah. And it evokes this, I think, idea of rare, special things. And as the more we thought about curio and how we would continue production out of the foeder being small batches. So essentially, I talked about that, our house culture being inside of it, and it's 30 barrels at a time, but we will only, so this time, pull half of it off. So it's essentially a continuous feed. If you think of it, I sort of liken it to kind of like kombucha. You know, you have that SCOBY and it lives there, and then you sort of continuously pull off of it. So it's similar in that way. But we figured, you know, going forward, we wanted to create a series out of Curio where we highlighted and featured unique and special, mostly botanicals, but, you know, predominantly indigenous Southwest adjuncts and ingredients. So in that way, we thought of like each of those being like unique, rare, special things. So Curio just really suddenly came together for that beer.
Yeah. So the thing I love about, Bow and Arrow is that you guys have really kind of kept your eye on the theme of the whole brewery, really just celebrating the Southwest. And on top of just like, giving people a taste of the Southwest and, a feel of the Southwest with the theme and everything, like what else are you trying to tell people about the Southwest and indigenous ingredients?
Well, I think I could maybe answer part of that. From my perspective, I think being Dene and growing up, in the Southwest, it's always felt like this hidden gem, right? Like growing up, and I'm sure most people feel that way about the places they grew up in. There's things that are super special to them, whether it's like the landscape. Our landscape is wildly interesting. It's a rough terrain, and to come from a community that knows how to live in that rough terrain makes you have such like a immense like respect for that. You're like basically in the middle of nowhere. I think from my perspective, you want to show the outside community, or in my mind, like the outside beer industry, that the desert is a beautiful place. It can be a rough place to live, but there's also a lot of opportunity. I think whether that's in like the discovery of a place or story,
Yeah,
or plants, that it does have its own vibe. And for me, that Southwest vibe was sort of missing in the craft beer community that I wanted to be a part of.
As Native folks too, we recognize, like, sure, we've seen different ingredients, kind of a limited basis, highlighted or adjuncted in beers in the Southwest from time to time, but not often is there like more of a narrative or story told behind it. And I think that's part of what we bring to the industry in general, is just, that narrative and sort of storytelling history that we have. I mean, we're different tribes, but I feel like that's a common thread. So that's something that we don't take for granted, and we kind of go out of our way to write about and share. I mean, you'll see it in our social media posts. Like, we feel like we really need to share like the experience, the story, the background. And that seems to really resonate with people.
I think also when you're using like indigenous ingredients, you have to do like your research and preparation for that, right? Because that's like a very it's like I don't want to use the word sacred that's like thrown around so often, but these ingredients are like really special to some of our communities. And I think to use these ingredients in beer in a really respectful way, that's something that we feel like we have to do as a part, thoughtfully, we're like a brewery, and then people say like we're a native owned brewery and we're the native brewery and all this, but that doesn't mean like we have to use like all Native American ingredients. But I think that's something that we are discovering what that means, like the process of it. We don't know what it means, like we're not like the authority on it, but as we discover how to do this, we put a lot of care and thoughtfulness into it. And we try to be like respectful as much as we can.
Yeah, and you can definitely see it. But that's why I say that I love you guys' theme and aesthetic is because there are different kinds of artistic views people have of the Southwest, and you guys just have like a fresher, more contemporary take on the Southwest, like the way it feels, the way it should be celebrated. My relationship with the Southwest has changed since I was a little girl. Growing up on the res, I wanted to get out. I wanted to live in a place where there's trees and lakes and maybe palm trees and in a different country. And I want to go live here and there. And as I am growing up and I'm learning more about the place I come from, all other places in New Mexico, like my heart just started like reining itself in. And now I tell people like I don't think I'll ever move away from New Mexico because this is my home. I can't see myself anywhere else. I don't wish to live in a different kind of environment. I love it here and my whole family's here too. Um, so yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing that. Um,
We really appreciate it, because we hope we're conveying, a certain look and feel and vibe. So it's really great to hear you say that. So thank you.
yeah, of course. You're welcome. And let's see. Let's take it back now. You guys have almost been open for 5 years. Tell me how it's changed. I've seen how the menus changed over all this time because I'm always there. But how has business changed? And then maybe I'll ask you a question about COVID. Ugh, sick of COVID.
I'm so sick of COVID too.
Let's see. I would say like one of the biggest things is, when we first opened, we were definitely like a little more conservative in the styles that we were brewing. We were just trying to establish ourselves because I don't know, at least at the time, it felt like to be viewed as like legitimate, you had to like do some solid like traditional beers that people like knew and understood, at least at the time. But we've always wanted to do, to dip into the wild and sour world, but it takes a different skill set and experience to do that. I guess after a year into our opening in like March of 2017, we brought in our new head brewer, Ted O'Hanlon, and he brought some of that sour, and wild beer experience and also working with barrels. But also, he was at a point in his career where he was wanting to explore, some of these approaches and styles more. And so we really connected on that. We hadn't previously done it. So when he joined us, we like put a stake in the ground, and we weren't sure if Albuquerque or the Southwest generally really had a palate yet for these wild and sour beers. So it was a bit of at least at the time, it felt kind of risky to suddenly be investing in barrels and the racks, and it's real cash that you're putting into those barrels when you brew a beer and they sit for 12, 18, 24 months. So, and it's an experiment at the end of the day. So some of it may or may not work out, but that was a direction that, all of us agreed we wanted to head down. And so that was, early 2017. So I think on our 3rd year anniversary, we released our very first Brett beer, which was Dark Mesa. It's a Belgian quad with Brett. So that was our very first package beer release as well. So that was a big milestone for us. And then we set up relationships with like Whole Foods and Total Wine. So it also felt like that was a moment, when we're walking through Whole Foods and we see our beer on a shelf. I mean, that's a moment to remember. And it's a really exciting experience to actually have, not only your product, but also, your first beer label. And, since then it evolves and you see your brand just before your eyes becoming more fully formed. So that was also exciting. So yeah, diving into wild and sours. And then more recently, you have to pay attention, and this is from like the business entrepreneur standpoint as well. You have to pay attention to, what the market wants as well. So within the last year and a half or so, we've started, experimenting with like pastry stouts and big hazy IPAs. And I think we're becoming known for it, and we're really focused on it in a deliberate way. And then more recently, with the onset of COVID, we took a pivot and kind of accelerated our plan a bit and acquired a canning line. So now we feel like we're working on like labels nonstop. We're like, okay, we've got our pipeline of labels. So that's also been an evolution for us now, and becoming more of a production brewery, where last month we brewed the most beer we've ever produced. So that's a really interesting point we find ourselves in right now.
Huh. That is interesting. The last month you produced the most beer ever in the last 4.5 years?
Yeah, because we now have 3 core brands in cans out in retail. So we've got actually a pretty good footprint that we've grown ourselves. So we have our wholesaler license. So we self-distribute our products. So we're out there merchandising, making sure our bottles and cans are stocked and pulled forward, and making promotional materials and things. So yeah, so in addition to making sure we have beer for our on-site, tap room patio, we're also now making sure we're staying on top of demand for our retail accounts.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah. So you guys have plans to open up another location in Farmington? How'd that go? I know that, then COVID like fucked everything up.
Yeah, so it's currently in a holding pattern. I think it was literally like 2 to 3 weeks before the COVID restrictions came into place. I had been meeting with our general contractor for the Farmington tap room, because we have everything in place. We just need to actually do the build out, but it's a small footprint. So in terms of like 25% of capacity, which are the current public health restrictions, it's a really tough situation we find ourselves in, with regards to putting the capital forward to build it out, because it's currently a vanilla shell, but we have our liquor license, we have our building, plans approved. But as soon as COVID hit and the restrictions came into play, we put that on pause and pivoted and pursued a canning line, because we found ourselves in a situation where, the only beer we could move was to go, like literally out our side door. So we were selling glass, selling beer by the glass growler. And we had just the month before bought a crowler seamer. So we had just gotten our first, I think, order of 32-ounce crowler cans. And then when COVID hit, everyone's scrambling to put their product in cans, right? So all of a sudden we also layered on, this aluminum can shortage. So suddenly our supply chain was disrupted, and we had long lead times on our crowler cans. So there was a shortage, and we're still feeling some of the ripple effects of that now. So Farmington, it's on pause for the moment.
Pause button.
All right. COVID out of the way. What else are you guys looking forward to in the future?
The future. Let me look into my crystal ball.
Well, this acquiring the canning line, commissioning it, working out the kinks. Let's see, we first started installing it the end of June, which, that's a few months past us, but still we feel like we're now to a point where we've worked out the kinks. We have our 3 core beers now in steady production, and this is actually the first month, so this is really exciting, that we'll be able to do some taproom only kind of one-off releases. We really feel like that will, drive a lot of ongoing excitement and innovation. And, to be honest, we can release some amazing beers on draft, but I feel, like people get extra excited about it if it's in a can. If it has some artwork and story, to go along with it. So this is the first month we'll be able to offer some of those options. So next week is Cactus Flats, which is a single hop hazy IPA series. And I'll let Missy talk about some of the others we've got coming up.
Because you really want to ask us, right? You want to know.
Yeah, especially about those IPAs. I love those.
So, sneak peek. Do you know about one of our label artists that we work with? His name is Dale.
Mm-hmm. He's been on our show Native America Call In a couple times. Yep.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So Dale DeForest and I went to the same high school in Farmington, Navajo Prep, which is the best high school in Farmington. But yeah, so Dale is this like super creative, awesome artist. And his passion is comics, right? So he's a big part of Indigenous Comic-Con. I know Dale is like one of the most talented, creative people out there. And when we first started doing our labels, we wanted to keep everything sort of in-house as much as possible. I hadn't seen Dale for a while, and so when I reached out to him, he was totally excited to possibly do some artwork for us. And so that's also part of the creating label process, where we get the idea for the name, and then we have to kind of put together the vision for what the art's going to look like. And so it's been really great getting to work with Dale. And most of the time, like you said, we have that, try to do like that really rad Southwest vibe, kind of clean lines, elegant. And Dale has this like wild, like crazy side to his art, where he's really into like goblins and monsters and like also like action heroes and things like that. But he has like a whole array of things like that he can do. And so for this beer that's going to come out close to Halloween, it's a big pastry imperial stout, pastry inspired. So a dessert inspired beer. And the dessert
it's like marzipan. So like tons of almond. So there's roasted almonds that went into it. There's Madagascar vanilla beans. So it's not extract. It's real Madagascar vanilla beans, and cocoa nibs.
Cocoa nibs. Yeah. So it's like this super like dessert beer. It's like ridiculous, probably a ridiculous amount of sugar. And so for this like pastry stout, we're doing this collab with these beer writers called Dark Side Brew Crew. They are like really into like heavy metal and stuff, and they're like kind of dark side, right? So we're like, oh, this would be so cool for this can to have like this a theme of like kind of like the dark side, but also just like it's a big monster of a beer. So we're calling it Pastry Slayer. Pastry Slayer. So I call up Dale and I call up Dale and I'm like, dude, you have to like give me like a pastry slayer, and it has to be like scary and dark. So he gave me this really scary looking slayer of a thing, a person, monster, god, I don't know what it is, but it's really scary. And it's gonna be on this can, and we're gonna release it like I think the day before Halloween. The week before Halloween.
Nice. That's awesome. I'm gonna be in line for that one.
Yeah, it's so cool. I wish I could like show you the artwork, but
12.8%.
It's in the secret book of artwork labels.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'm looking forward to that in the immediate future.
The ability ongoing to keep releasing these fun beers.
Yeah, you have to. That's as a consumer, that's pretty exciting too when we see really good artwork, really creative ingredients and mix of ingredients in there. I love that. But what is you guys' like favorite part of operating a brewery?
Oh, the best part? Let's see. Inspiration. That's always a fun thing. Sometimes it starts with kind of like the book of names, where like names come, but there has to be a beer at some point that feels like it's the right fit. But also with certain ingredients, we'll be like, oh man, we really want to use that, but we're waiting for that right beer fit for it. We also just have a really solid fun group of people, like super creative. Like Ted, our head brewer, he has a culinary background. Actually, he went to culinary school and, you know, worked in kitchens and that side of things before he got into brewing. So when we are talking about these culinary inspired beers, it's really fun to collaborate and work with him through that process. So that's really fun.
I mean, I think most people would say like drinking the beer, right? But it is totally not that. It's like, for me, I think, so I'm primarily like the creative director side of things. So I feel like my work here is like super fun and I get to just do all the fun things, be creative, and I have no responsibilities. Just kidding. I think coming from like sort of like my science medicine background and, you know, all that, it's like when I come to the brewery on my off days, my second job, coming to the brewery and seeing like just everything that like we've been able to create, like having a like physical space and just seeing like the progress, I think is like super exciting on a day-to-day basis. But also I agree with Shyla, like there's a really good vibe here. And I think the people who work in beer are generally like really awesome people, like really easygoing. They're really fun to be around. And we always just try to have like a really positive outlook on things. Because, you know, beer at the end of the day brings people together, and people drink beer when they're feeling like, you know, there's something to celebrate. You're like with your family or friends. So it's just like a really good vibe, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. And the canning line is still like shiny and brand new for us. So every canning day is exciting.
Yeah, there's always something exciting going on, like some new gadget.
Our labels arrived.
Yeah,
you know.
Or we have like a new T-shirt, or, you know, or so-and-so from some awesome brewery, famous brewery came by, or, you know, it's just like every day there's something like really cool, like kind of happening, little highlights here and there.
Yeah, cool. You totally don't have to do this, but when I name these episodes for Toasted Sister, usually it's something cool that somebody has said within the episode that'll become the name of the episode. You know, you guys have your book of names. You guys like coming up with the names of the beers. Do you have a suggestion for the name of this episode?
I don't know. I kind of like book of names. I mean, if you say book of names,
sounds mysterious.
And it's kind of like the lines of Curio too.
And people have commented quite a bit on like our names and like how we choose it, how it comes about. So it seems like it's something that grabs people anyways.
It's one of the hardest things that we have to do.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, I will call this episode Book of Names. You know, last question here, you know, native entrepreneurship. You know, what would a piece of advice for young native entrepreneurs out there?
I would say, you know, any startup, any business that you're starting from scratch is a lot of work. There's fun aspects that we've, you know, highlighted, but, you know, there's also just the usual like numbers and not always so fun things. So that's a part of it. So I think it's really important that whatever it is you choose to do, it's something that brings you joy. And people do talk about passion. It is important that you enjoy, you know, what it is you're doing, because it'll consume your days and nights. So, you know, that fun part of it is what I think will really like pull you through those challenges along the way. COVID, whatever, cash, people, you know, hiring teams is also challenging. So make sure y'all are, you know, kind of rowing the same direction, and your passion is contagious too. So it kind of like spills over to your team. So I think that's important to keep in mind as you're evaluating your options.
Cool. I forgot about that like personal question. Tell me a little bit about your background, the quick you know, story of Shyla Sheppard and Missy Begay. Like, what were you like growing up? What was your family like? Into, you know, your professions today. You guys are not just like the owners of Bow Arrow Brewery.
Okay, let's see.
You go
In a
first.
nutshell, or go
In
ahead.
a nutshell, okay. My life in 2 sentences. So I'll just say, res kid, grew up pretty nerdy, but I felt like I always had like a good core group of friends in my life. I probably have like 300 cousins because both my mom and my dad have like so many brothers and sisters. So when I graduated, I had like when I graduated from Stanford in the 2000s, my family like rented this Navajo Nation tour transit bus because there was so many people that wanted to come up for the graduation. And it was a year like Chelsea Clinton was in my class, and like this Navajo Nation transit bus like rolls up, right? And all these like Navajos like get out. Like all like my of like so many like different Masanis and Chays and all my Mayajas and my Bijes and everybody like just came, and I think it wasn't until that day I realized like I'm not really like the others because our family was just so huge. So I've been really fortunate in that. And so yeah, res kid, grew up, became a doctor, and I study the dark side. I'm a sleep doctor. So not like the Stephen King movie, but like an actual sleep medicine doctor. And so I'm a full-time doc, and on my off time, I like need this really like artistic outlook. And so that's how I became like the creative director of things. And so I get to use the creative side of my brain.
So this is Shyla, also res kid. I'm not from the Southwest. I actually grew up on the Fort Berthold Reservation in Western North Dakota. Yeah, I'm Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara, and grew up specifically in the community of Twin Buttes. There's probably less than 250 people at the time, including people who live way far out in like down winding like gravel roads and stuff. We had a K through 8 elementary school. So for high school, we would be bused off the res. We had 2 choices. I went to Halliday. And yeah, most like growing up, I was just always outside with my friends. We were like building forts, I don't know, horseback riding, spending time at the lake. I mean, I feel like looking back, I feel very fortunate that I felt like I was able to be a kid and like just really like soaked it up and enjoyed that time of my life. And just a beautiful country in Western North Dakota, especially in the summertime. It's kind of a hidden gem. Yeah, my grandma was one of 15 children, so we have pretty big family. Something I really missed out on this year, and it still makes the whole year feel off, is our annual powwow at Mandaree. That's where my family's from. And that's really the one time of year where we all get together and we camp out. We have our same spot every single year. So that feels like a void for sure. Of all of the things during COVID in 2020, like that definitely has thrown me off for the year, just not going home, in mid-July for that family time. But yeah, from there, I went to Stanford. I guess I would say I was like very athletic, nerdy too, but I felt like my outlets were definitely like running and basketball. So went to Stanford, study economics there. I ran track my freshman year at Stanford. I walked on. That was a big transition. So definitely having that structure in my everyday as a Division I athlete was definitely helpful. Yeah, and then I was in the heart of Silicon Valley, so I was really intrigued with this whole idea of venture capital. And obviously coming from the res, that seems to be the challenge, like access to capital. So I'm like, what is this all about? I should learn a thing or two. So ultimately, I was in venture capital here in the Southwest for 8.5 years. And during that time is when I started thinking of bow and arrow and what it would look like. And ultimately in 2013, took the plunge. Yeah, Missy and I met at Stanford. That's where we connected. About to celebrate our first year wedding anniversary coming up next week, I think. So yeah, we've kind of grown up together, seen each other through a lot of different evolutions and things. I've watched her become a doctor, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's a whole nother podcast.
This could go on and on, but
it's kind of like how that fooder arrived in our brewery. That's been like our adventure throughout this whole thing. Like an epic road trip, family meddling, and the fooder like arrives, your dad brings it in the middle of the night, and it's like just like these awesome little adventures that make life so funny.
We've done some random things.
Yeah.
We've bartered a couple star quilts to set up our stand at Crow Fair long time ago, and we like bought things down here, took it up there, and like sold them. Slept in a little tent behind our stand. Like we've done some random things.
Yeah, we've had some crazy adventures. From t-shirts selling at the Crow Fair to making beer in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
That was Missy Begay and Shyla Sheppard. You can follow Bow Arrow Brewing on social media to keep up with their adventures in beer making or just admire their aesthetic. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Andy Murphy, overlord of the Toasted Sister podcast. Follow me and the podcast on social media for updates about upcoming events and episodes or the latest food stuff I'm obsessed with. This podcast is supported by the Kiwanis Broadcast Corporation, and music is created by C.W. Ione. Check out his great music at cwione.com. That's cwayon.com. We'll see you around.